Steven Spielberg has shaped the way we see cinema for more than half a century. From his first breakthrough on television to the biggest films in Hollywood history, his own words tell the story best.
Steven Spielberg presents.
This is Spielberg's most important films, in his own voice and through the voices of those who worked alongside him.
There hasn't been a murder in 6 years. There's nothing wrong with the system. It is
Perfect, I agree. Murder can be stopped.
Stage now, with the fate of human dignity in our hands. Blood's been spilt.
Here is the truth. Give me something to hold on to.
I was sitting around the office one day looking through scripts, continuing to write, trying to get my feature film ideas off the ground, trying to get somebody to hire me. And my assistant, Nona Tyson, found Duel. She said, I read this article, this short story by Richard Matheson in Playboy magazine. I said, what do you think reading Playboy magazine, Nona? Are you kidding? She said, no. But she said, I love the fiction. And she said, I want you to read the short story. I think this is right up your alley. And I read the short story and I said, wow. This is terrifying. This is like a Hitchcock movie. It's like Psycho with the birds, only it's on wheels.
Duel taught Spielberg that fear lives in suggestion. With that lesson, he set out for the ocean.
Motion picture version of Peter Benchley's best-selling novel, Jaws.
Taking a feature film at sea stops just short of a nightmare. It's the second day of American shooting on Jaws. They've already been to Australia for the underwater shots of the shark.
Turn on the walkie-talkie, please, Freddie. I don't think Freddie can listen.
I turned the film down a couple of times because I was thinking that it was going to be a bitch to shoot. And I was not wrong. But it was such an adventure. And if you had to pick one word to describe the shoot, it was waiting.
Not waiting with a T, not waiting.
Yeah.
Waiting. Yeah.
Waiting. And that meant while we were really shooting at the edge of the harbor, and if you moved the camera even a little bit, you saw the harbor. You saw houses and Walter Cronkite and things. And Steven could not show any of that.
Because you're supposed to be in the middle of the ocean.
Right.
From terror unseen to wonder in the sky.
What do you want?
I just want to know that it's really happening.
Initially, my producing partners in the studio thought I was crazy because they said it has no meaning. What does it mean? Close Encounters of the Third Kind. What does that mean?
Close Encounter of the Third Kind is really when you meet them.
And so one of my biggest struggles, it turned out, was not getting the film financed, because after Jaws, everybody was willing to offer me financing for my next picture. It was getting my title through the marketing department at Columbia Pictures.
Have you recently had a close encounter?
But I remember when I wrote the script, I kind of wrote it backwards. I started with the landing and then tried to back the rest of the story into how do they get there? And how can we have an operatic third act encounter between them and us in a beautiful musical way? Because the idea of music was just something I thought, well, mathematics is a way of communicating with perhaps another species from off the planet, but mathematics is also music.
After Wonder came the thrill of pulp adventure.
Raiders of the Lost Ark. A film from Steven Spielberg and George Lucas.
We had a lot of people involved, a lot of extras in Tunisia. We had over 600 extras working an archaeological dig, which in itself was hazardous because it was 135 degrees in the shade every day. And we were all suffering from all the things you suffer from when you're Lawrence and his army walking through the Sahara. And we were shooting on the tongue of the Sahara. It was the parched tongue of the Sahara. It was an awful experience in Tunisia, but I guess the scariest part of making the movie was the fact that it is a sequence where Harrison Ford and Karen Allen are thrown into a chamber with 7,000 live snakes.
Next, his most personal crowd pleaser.
Steven Spielberg presents...
Come home. E.T. was a film I actually started thinking about while I was directing Close Encounters. And when the little alien goes back to the mothership, I just imagined, what if he didn't? What if he stayed as a foreign exchange student? And then the entire story of that extraterrestrial opened up a whole kind of other alien idea for a movie, perhaps. Now, that's not where E.T. came from, but that was what I was thinking when I was making Close Encounters.
From childhood friendship, Spielberg turned to prehistoric terror.
Boy, do I hate being right all the time.
I made a fool of myself. I fell all over myself to make this movie in front of Michael. Doing everything but getting down on my knees and begging him, because I loved the idea of, DNA and dinosaurs in many combinations.
But in the very same year, spectacle gave way to conscience.
I'd make sure it's known the company's in business. I'd see that it had a certain panache.
One particular survivor, she came to watch her scenes being shot, and she said, "But I have a much bigger story than the story you're telling of my life." In that moment, I thought, is she showing me a way to bear witness to this greatest show-off, this greatest tragedy in human history? And is she going to be the light that shines the way for me to figure out how are we going to get more of her to talk about their experiences?
That spark would become the USC Shoah Foundation, the organization created by Spielberg dedicated to recording and sharing the stories of survivors of genocides.
This is the morning after the Nazis decided to systematically eliminate whatever population, Jewish population, was left in Krakow. And here we have Oscar, who beginning to realize what's happening in terms of what role he plays and his country plays. And we're seeing this young kid dressed in a red dress. And that's part of the story. This is the recollections of the writer, Mr. Kinnelly, who was the novelist.
5 years later, he brought that rawness to the beaches of Normandy.
Peter Ryan. This man was killed last week in New Guinea.
Daniel Ryan.
The 3 men are brothers, sir.
Can I take this film? Because I've heard that it's tough. That's the question they're going to ask, and I've seen the pictures. What would you say to them?
I would just say to them that that is a decision that they're going to have to make based on what they've heard about the film. If they have any doubt that they might not be able to take the level of reality inside the sequences of battlefield combat, they should wait until somebody else they trust sees it first, who knows them well enough to say, I think if you close your eyes in 4 or 5 places, you'll be okay. Or, this isn't the right film for you. Go see something else.
The training period was going to be very important because, look, there's just so much to learn. Most of it is physical. In all honesty, you have to learn how to carry this stuff. You have to learn how to put it on. Without it, you're at the mercy of costumers and, the prop people that are making the movie. But there was this other aspect of who our characters were and how we related to one another that was going to be more important than any rehearsal we ever had. This was our true preparation in order to make this movie. And it was cold and it was wet and we got very tired and, some of us threw up a couple of times and it wasn't the most pleasant of experiences. But the reality, the end result is that on the first day of shooting, we were acting like the soldiers we were portraying. If we had 20 minutes, we all laid down and went to sleep because we were still exhausted. And we got right up and did what we were asked of. And it made everything authentic for us as actors who didn't want to let anybody down.
After history's noise, he imagined a future's whisper.
We see what they see. There hasn't been a murder in 6 years. There's nothing wrong with the system. It is perfect. I agree.
Murder can be stopped
before they happen.
It's just kind of a need to know about the unknowable. And I think this story flirts with what if we had the chance to know certain things about the future, especially things that come under the heading of life and death.
I'm placing you under arrest for the future murder of Sarah Marks.
Give the man his hat.
Then came the hardest truths, set against the backdrop of history.
The deal had been made.
Right now, the Israelis have disappeared.
Massive security force.
In front of it, the Arabs look like...
The operation that we're describing in our film was a completely covert operation. We know it took place. We know the people we describe in the film were killed as part of the operation. And until secret files get opened up, the details of the hit squads, this is going to remain obscure, and that's where imagination and filmmaking can really step in.
Are we on or off?
Although there's a couple of facts that are indisputable. One is that the athletes were massacred in Munich. And number two, Golda Meir made her decision to go after those responsible for killing the athletes. And three, a significant number of those who were thought responsible were killed. And those are indisputable facts.
What is it like being directed by Steven Spielberg?
It was just the best. It was, you know, I love my sport, and I think both Black Hawk Down and Munich are the two films that most made me feel like I was part of a sporting team.
Mm-hmm.
Because the camera is never still in that film, and the relationship that he has with Janusz Kaminski, the cinematographer, which is unbelievable. And we shot on film back in those days. The focus pull is right by the camera, watching your every move, and it's very dynamic, and there's a million moves going on. And every take felt like live theater. It felt like something dangerous was happening. It felt like everyone had to be completely on it for it to work.
From geopolitics, Spielberg turned to governance through the eyes of a president.
Constitution alone. We're stepped out upon the world stage now, with the fate of human dignity in our hands.
There were so many clues throughout all the scholarly writings about this entire period of time. Thaddeus Stevens said, 13th Amendment, you know, the greatest amendment of the 19th century, you know, passed by corruption, aided and abetted by the purest man in America, you know, quote unquote, Thaddeus Stevens.
I began from knowing absolutely nothing about him or his life, having only the mythologized image that most of us are introduced to. What I invariably don't do and haven't done is to dismember a life into its component parts and work upon one aspect of the life and then another.
From governance in the 19th century to a Cold War chess game.
East Berlin.
Just tell me that you're not going to be in any danger. I don't even care if it's the truth. Give me something to hold on to.
I knew nothing about this story at all 2 years ago. I knew about Gary Powers because I was 13 when he was shot down, and that was the biggest news story, and everybody was talking about it, that he was he was a prisoner behind the Iron Curtain. But I didn't know about this story at all.
You know, another thing about Steven that I'm thinking too is that he really loves narrative. He's really focused on the narrative. So some directors are focused more on the feeling of the actors or on the image, the beauty of the image, the unusualness of the image. But he's very concerned all the time about where the audience's imagination is. Are they on the front of their seat, so to speak? What don't they know? What do they know? How much do I need to tell them to keep them or to set them up for something else? And that's always a good sign, I think, in making a film or theater, that you keep thinking, where's the audience?
And finally, Spielberg turned the camera back on himself.
What kind of movie are we gonna make?
Well, I thought it was going to be a lot easier than it turned out to be, because I know the material, and I know all the characters for my entire life, and yet I found this to be, for me, a very daunting experience. It was a Kafkaesque experience, especially casting the Fabelmans, because I was casting this based on people I knew pretty well. The first difficult thing was deciding to tell the story in the first place. That was probably the hardest challenge, in the sense that this is my private life, and I leave a little bit of myself, we all do, behind in everything we
we perform in or write or direct or produce. We leave a little of ourselves behind.
It's really an honor, to be asked to be somebody's beloved mother. This film was made with so much love. It's, something that I think is so interesting about Steven is still how tapped into his childhood he is, and how it's really an endless source of creativity for him. And he made this as a tribute to the two people that formed him.
That experience, I just found that, thinking about Steven's life, and as we talked about it, just an incredibly moving thread through the whole thing. And we had a blast. I mean, I hate writing, and
You hate writing?
It's like, oh, I do. It's like the worst thing. It's so miserable because you're alone in the room with your awful self and your stupid head. But we were on this Zoom 3 days a week, 4 hours a day, just sort of playing around and saying, what if he says this? What if he says that? What is it? And it was, and it just kept coming and coming, and it was great. I loved it. Now I have to go back to doing it by myself, and I hate it even more because it's like, where is he? Where's Steve? So,
yeah. When the whole writing process was over, I breathed a great sigh of relief, and I said to myself, great, now I don't have to write that book.
Even better.
Across 50 years, Spielberg already told the story. He was telling it to us all along. When Steven Spielberg picked his top 5 actors of all time, there were some surprises. Click the thumbnail on screen to see his choices.